And it's Saturday. Welcome to the Fun Astrology and Merriman Market Analyst Saturday Financial Podcast. I'm Thomas Miller. Thank you so much for joining us. And the author of this free weekly column that we read here every week is Ray Merriman, who now must be getting settled in to his new digs in the East Coast in Miami. And we have a great newsletter this week, chock full of some excellent astrology in the second section. And how could we not start this newsletter without a couple of news articles? First, from Yahoo Finance on Friday, President Trump's self-imposed February 1st deadline for a first round of tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China looms in just hours as economic observers and world leaders try to plan amid the uncertainty. On Thursday afternoon, Trump reiterated his plans to put a 25% tariff on imports from Mexico and Canada. But even then, he added to the uncertainty by saying some provisions, specifically those around oil, remain undecided. End quote. And from also Friday, FoxBusiness.com, this is a quote from Donald Trump, but quoted by Alan Nitzberg. "We are going to require a commitment from these seemingly hostile countries that they will neither create a new BRICS currency nor back any other currency to replace the mighty U.S. dollar, or they will face 100% tariffs. They can go find another sucker nation," Trump said. And another Friday afternoon article from the Wall Street Journal Online, stocks rose in early 2025 even as fears over tariffs, rates, and China's surprise AI win took turns rattling investors. End quote. And now, Ray's commentary. Typical of a new moon in Aquarius and its ruler Uranus changing direction, many global stock indices and gold rallied late last week. Then they suddenly reversed on Friday. Both Aquarius and its ruler Uranus are known to exhibit dynamics of suddenness and disruption, often under the guise of brilliance and thinking outside the box. The cause of the rallies and sudden reversals in global equity and gold markets is likely an anticipation of new taxes, tariffs, about to be imposed on the world by the leadership of the United States on Saturday, February 1st. In addition to actually creating a new tax on consumers, this highly anticipated executive order also has the potential to disrupt distribution networks and supply chains involving world trade, and hence result in higher prices, which is inflationary. On the positive side, this initiative also has the potential to level the world trade playing field, where the U.S. pays considerably more in tariffs to receive goods produced in other nations than it receives from goods exported. So there are two sides to this issue. One is fairness in trade. The other is the economic consequences, disruption of trade routes, and probably increase in inflation. How to manage both with balance is the challenge. One way to counter the inflationary potential of an increase in tariffs is to also increase the supply of goods produced domestically, thus prodding producers to lower prices in order to maintain market share. Can that be achieved? This seems to be the rationale supporting this pending executive order. With Jupiter of world trade square to Saturn, depressed, reduced, constrained, it seems probable that world trade will go through a challenging time this year, and stock markets may be suddenly recognizing this. Nevertheless, stock markets were chaotic last week, as they have been all of this new year, but mostly they were up. Yet there continues to be many examples of continuing bearish divergence. In Asia and the Pacific Rim, the ASX of Australia made a new all-time high on Friday, whereas India's Nifty indexes fell to a new 7-month low early last week. In Europe, the German DAX and London FTSE indices also made new all-time highs, while both the Netherlands AEX and Zurich SMI also enjoyed strong rallies to new multi-month highs. In the Americas, the Bovespa of Brazil rallied strongly into early Friday but then sold off and closed down 777 points. That same pattern unfolded in the United States, where the major stock indices were up nicely all week, testing all-time highs early on Friday, but then selling off sharply by the close. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, for instance, came within 20 points of its all-time high, but then closed down 337 points. Intermarket bearish divergence continues to be present from the prior week's all-time high in the S&P that was not matched yet in the Nasdaq or Dow Jones Industrial Average. Gold soared to a new all-time high of $28.53 in the nearby April contract and then sold off late Friday. Silver, too, had a healthy rally, rising to $32.92 on Friday before selling off 70 cents into the close. Bitcoin attempted to make a new all-time high but fell short at $106,440 on Thursday before dropping nearly $5,000 on Friday's low. Crude oil continued to fall all week, reaching a low of $72.02 on Friday. The prior week it was testing $80. Now, the short-term geocosmics and longer-term thoughts. First, an article from Thursday's Wall Street Journal. The Trump administration rescinded its memo calling for federal agencies to pause potentially trillions of dollars in federal grants, loans, and other financial assistance programs, a day after a federal judge temporarily blocked the directive that had sowed widespread confusion. The White House on Wednesday issued a memo to federal employees scrapping its original memorandum, end quote. And another from Tuesday's Wall Street Journal about DeepSeek, quote, "Who saw that coming? Not Wall Street, which sold off tech stocks on Monday after the weekend news that a highly sophisticated Chinese AI model, DeepSeek, rivals big tech-built systems but costs a fraction to develop. The implications are likely to be far-reaching and not merely in equities. The tech-heavy Nasdaq fell 3.1%, driven by a 16.9% dive in NVIDIA shares. NVIDIA dominates the market in advanced AI chips," end quote. Now, Ray's thoughts. The quote-unquote retrograde chaos described in these recent columns and last week's micro-webinar on what the bleep is happening was in full form last week. That is the start, go, restart, stop again nature of all three personal planets, Mercury, Mars, Venus, then Mercury again, going retrograde back to back between November 25th, 2024 through April 12th, 2025. Initiatives like new tariffs and government funding freezes start with great gusto without significant information or oversight, then pulled back and either revised, tried again, or discarded altogether. The result is chaos and confusion. Such a cosmic retrograde chaos climate is a time to work out ideas and strategies for their eventual successful implementation. This is not the time to shoot first and then try to figure out that for which you are aiming. In another example of starting then pausing may be about to take place in the financial world of Sam Altman. He's on the verge of securing a $500 billion commitment to build OpenAI's data center empire called Stargate. But then, suddenly, Uranus again, plus retrograde chaos, comes the announcement that a new Chinese company is releasing an advanced version of AI called DeepSeek, which is only a fraction of the cost of Stargate. Based on the transits to Altman's natal chart, who was born April 25, 1985, things might not go quite the way he thinks or wishes. First off, transiting Pluto in early Aquarius will be forming a waning square to Altman's natal sun at 2 degrees Taurus. Pluto in a hard aspect to a personal planet indicates power plays, and if not handled just right, often results in a loss of power. As stated several times in this column, no one escapes a hard Pluto transit unscathed without a quote-unquote surrender of sorts. Trump had it in the 2020 election that he lost and refused to concede, and Biden had it in the 2024 election, which he claims he would have won had he not been forced to withdraw by his own party. It doesn't end there. Altman also has a natal Mars-Saturn opposition at 26-27 degrees of Taurus-Scorpio, respectively, with the moon also around that degree in late Taurus, depending on the exact time of his birth. Transiting Uranus is in late Taurus throughout much of this year, conjunct to his Mars moon and opposite his Saturn. This is not an indicator of one who succeeds by being rigid and not making adjustments as required. More often, Uranus transits to Saturn can be disruptive to one's plans and authority in management. This aspect often, but not always, leads to being fired by an employer, board of directors, or rebelled against by one's employees, or even encountering problems with government and its laws and rules. Interestingly enough, we see similar Uranus transits to the charts of Jensen Huang, February 17, 1968, and NVIDIA, the company he runs, which was founded April 5, 1999. Huang has his sun at 27 degrees Aquarius. NVIDIA has its Saturn there, squared by natal Pluto at 25 degrees Scorpio. Here's another power play. Uranus is challenging both in a T-square. This transformational period in the life of Huang and NVIDIA was pointed out in a May 2024 interview with Radio Tokyo. NVIDIA is in the midst of a wild ride in 2025, and you have to wonder if Altman and Stargate are in store for a similar ride. Neither of these gentlemen's plans are likely to materialize as they expect. Both may find themselves in very different situations, perhaps against their wills, by the end of the year, unless they understand how to integrate these principles well. Uranus involves not being overly disruptive and doing what you said you were going to do without breaking rules. Surprising others by suddenly shifting directions is not advised. Saturn involves integrity and honesty. With the opposition, it may be that they see others they have to deal with as lacking in these qualities, and that is what disrupts their plans. With Uranus and Saturn, it is usually a case of someone violating a promise or agreement and leads to changes that threaten the stability of the enterprise. This is going to be an interesting and perhaps very volatile year for tech companies throughout the world. Thanks, Ray, for that great analysis of those charts in the astrology in that last section. That was phenomenal. Have a great rest of the weekend, and may the news cycle die down for us all. I'll see you back on Monday. Thanks for listening.